What if the moment you stop needing her is the exact moment she starts wanting you again? Most people think attraction comes from effort, from trying harder, from showing someone how much they mean to you. But the reality is often the opposite. The more you try to prove your value to someone who is already pulling away, the more you slowly give that value away. Neediness doesn't appear loud and obvious at first. It shows up in small ways: checking your phone constantly, waiting for her replies, adjusting your mood based on her attention, trying to say the perfect thing so she doesn't lose interest. And when she senses that energy, something inside her shifts, because attraction is deeply connected to emotional independence. When someone feels that you need them to feel complete, the dynamic changes. Instead of seeing you as someone strong and centered, they start to feel like the emotional leader in the situation. And once that happens, respect quietly begins to fade. Detachment changes that dynamic immediately. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop depending. It means your happiness, your focus, and your direction are no longer tied to whether she gives you attention or not. You wake up, you work on your goals, you spend time improving yourself, and your life continues moving forward whether she's in it or not. And that energy is powerful because it communicates something without saying a single word. You value yourself. The moment you detach, the invisible pressure disappears. You're no longer trying to convince her to choose you. You're no longer trying to compete with whoever she's seeing now. Instead, you simply step back and let your actions speak. You focus on your life, your growth, your discipline, and your purpose. And ironic, that's when your presence becomes more valuable than it was when you were trying so hard. Why? Because people naturally respect what they can't control. When you stop reacting emotionally to her decisions, when you stop chasing, when you stop seeking validation, you become unpredictable. She no longer knows where you stand emotionally, and that uncertainty creates curiosity. She expected you to fight for her attention, to prove she still mattered more than anyone else. But when you don't play that role anymore, the dynamic flips. Now, instead of you wondering what she's thinking, she starts wondering what you're doing. Instead of you checking her social media, she starts noticing your absence. Instead of you trying to regain her interest, she begins to question why you're no longer trying. That shift begins with one simple but powerful decision: letting go of the need to control the outcome. Detachment is not weakness, it's emotional strength. It's the ability to say, my value does not decrease just because someone fails to see it. And when you truly embody that mindset, everything about your presence changes. You stop chasing attention and start attracting respect, because the moment you no longer need her approval is the moment your value becomes impossible to ignore. Here's what most people don't realize: when she leaves for someone new, it's not always about deep connection. A lot of the time, it's driven by novelty, emotion, and the excitement of something different. New conversations, new energy, new attention. It creates a temporary high that feels real in the moment, but isn't always built on a solid foundation. At first, everything seems perfect from the outside. She's posting more, smiling more, showing the world that she's happy. And if you're watching from a distance, it can mess with your mind. You start comparing yourself. You start wondering what he has that you don't. You start thinking she upgraded. But what you don't see is what happens after the initial excitement fades. Because new relationships often survive on contrast. She compares him to you in the beginning, and the differences feel refreshing. Maybe he gives her more attention. Maybe he's more available. Maybe he does things you didn't do. And for a while, that feels like an upgrade. But over time, familiarity kicks in, the mystery disappears, the emotional highs start to level out, and that's when reality begins to set in. This is where your detachment becomes powerful. If you're still chasing, still reacting, still emotionally invested in what she's doing, you actually make her new situation feel stronger. Why? Because your attention reinforces her decision. It tells her she still has control over you, removes any space for her to reflect, to question, or to miss what she had. But when you disappear, when you truly step back and focus on your own life, you remove that emotional safety net. Now she's left with only her new reality, without the constant reminder that she still has you in the background. And that's when comparisons start to happen naturally. Not because you forced it, not because you tried to win her back, but because human nature always reflects on what it had once the excitement fades. She starts noticing the differences in a different way now. The things that once felt exciting may begin to feel inconsistent. The attention that once felt flattering may start to feel overwhelming or even forced. And slowly, without you saying a word, your absence starts to carry weight because you're no longer there to be compared actively. You become something she remembers. And memory often highlights value in ways presence never could. But here's the key: you're not disappearing as a tactic to break her new relationship. You're doing it to protect your own peace, your own growth, and your own self respect. The shift that happens on her side is just a natural consequence, not your mission. Because the moment you stop trying to compete is the moment you remove yourself from the game entirely. And when you're no longer competing, you become something different. You become the standard she quietly measures everything else against. Silence is something most people underestimate, especially after a breakup. They think they need to explain, express, to fight for one more chance. But what they don't realize is that constant communication removes mystery. And without mystery, there's nothing left to wonder about. When you go silent, when you truly detach and stop reaching out, you create something powerful. Unanswered questions. She expected a certain version of you. She expected you to text, to call, to check in, to react emotionally to her decisions, maybe even to chase her or try to win her back. And when that doesn't happen, it disrupts the image she had of you in her mind. Now, there's a gap between expectation and reality, and that gap creates curiosity. At first, she might not react immediately. She may even feel relieved, thinking things ended cleanly. But as time passes, your absence starts to stand out. No messages, no reactions, no signs of emotional weakness. It becomes noticeable because it's different from what she predicted. And when something doesn't make sense, the mind tries to solve it. She starts asking herself questions. Why hasn't he reached out? Why does he seem unaffected? Is he seeing someone else? Did he move on that fast? Is he really okay without me? These thoughts don't come because you said something, they come because you didn't. Silence forces imagination to take over, and imagination is often more powerful than reality because now she's filling in the blanks herself. She's creating scenarios in her mind about what you might be doing, who you might be with, how your life is going without her. And the less she knows, the more those thoughts grow. But there's another layer to this: her ego. When someone leaves, especially for someone else, there's usually an assumption that they still have emotional control over you, that you'll be affected, that you'll struggle to move on, that you'll still be available in some way. And when your behavior doesn't match that expectation, it challenges that belief. Your silence doesn't just create curiosity, it challenges her sense of control because now she can't predict you. She can't read you. She can't measure your feelings based on your actions, and that lack of control can be uncomfortable, especially if she was used to having that emotional influence over you. But here's where most people mess it up: they break the silence too early, they get anxious, they start wondering if it's working, they look for signs, overthink small details, and eventually reach out just to feel something again. And in doing that, they reset everything. They remove the mystery. They answer the questions she was just starting to ask. True detachment requires discipline. It means being comfortable with not knowing what she's thinking. It means letting time do its job. It means trusting that your absence is speaking louder than anything you could say right now, because the more consistent your silence is, the stronger its impact becomes. You're no longer explaining yourself, you're letting her wonder. The moment you stop focusing on her is the moment you finally have the space to rebuild yourself. And this is where most people either transform or stay stuck. Because it's easy to say move on, but real detachment isn't just about distance from her, it's about direction in your own life. When she left, something inside you took a hit. Your confidence, your sense of control, your emotional stability, it all got shaken. And if you don't consciously rebuild that, you carry those cracks into everything you do next. That's why this phase isn't just important, it's necessary. Instead of putting your energy into thinking about her, you redirect it into becoming better, not to prove something to her, but to prove something to yourself. You start with your habits, you clean up your routine, you go to the gym even when your mind is distracted, you push your body because physical discipline builds mental strength. Every workout becomes more than just exercise. It becomes a reminder that you're in control of your progress. Then you focus on your purpose, whether it's your career, your studies, your business, or your goals. You start showing up with more intensity because now you understand something you didn't fully grasp before. Your life cannot revolve around one person. It has to be bigger than that. You begin investing your mindset. You read, you learn, you reflect, you look back at the relationship, not with emotion, but with awareness. You start noticing where you overgave, where you ignored red flags, where you lost your frame trying to keep her. And instead of blaming yourself, you use those lessons to sharpen your standards. This is how you evolve. And the change isn't just internal, it starts to show externally. The way you carry yourself becomes different. You speak with more clarity, you move with more intention. You're not easily shaken anymore because you've been through something that forced you to grow. People around you start noticing it too, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because real growth is hard to hide. It shows in your discipline, your focus, your energy. You're no longer reacting to life, you're directing it. And here's the part most people don't expect: this transformation changes your entire presence. When you were chasing, your energy was scattered. You were focused on her reactions, her attention, her approval. But now all of that energy is centered, it's grounded. And that's what creates real attraction, not just in dating, but in every area of life. Because high value energy isn't loud, it's calm, focused, and self assured. And whether she sees it or not isn't even the point anymore. Because this version of you isn't built to win her back. It's built so you never lose yourself again. That's the real upgrade. At some point, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. The emotional weight you were carrying starts to shift. In the beginning, you were the one thinking about her constantly, wondering what she's doing, who she's with, whether she's happier without you. It felt like all the energy was on your side, like you were the only one feeling the loss. But the moment you truly stop chasing, that dynamic begins to change. Because when you were present, texting her, checking in, reacting to her life, you were giving her something she didn't even realize she depended on: your attention, your validation, your emotional consistency. Even if she didn't fully appreciate it at the time, it was there and it made her feel a certain way. Now that it's gone, there's a gap. At first, she might not notice it consciously. She's distracted, caught up in something new, adjusting to a different situation. But over time, that absence becomes more visible. The little things you used to do, the way you showed up, the energy you brought, it's no longer there. And people always notice what's missing when it's no longer available. This is where the emotional shift begins. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped overgiving. You stopped being constantly available. You stopped feeding her attention without receiving the same return. Now, instead of you wondering about her, she starts to feel moments of curiosity, small at first, a passing thought. Then it happens again and again, because your absence isn't just silence, it's contrast. She starts comparing how she feels now versus how she felt when you were around. And even if she doesn't fully admit it, there are moments where something feels different. Something feels less stable, less certain. Because what you gave her wasn't just presence, it was familiarity, emotional grounding, and consistency. And those things are hard to replace. Meanwhile, you're no longer feeding the old dynamic. You're not reacting to her posts. You're not reaching out. You're not showing signs of emotional dependency. And that changes how she perceives you, even from a distance. You go from being predictable to being uncertain, and uncertainty creates attention. She may start checking your social media, not because she planned to, but because she's curious. She may wonder what you're doing, who you're with, how you're moving on so calmly. And the less she knows, the more those thoughts grow. But here's the key difference: you're not participating in this shift, you're not trying to trigger her emotions, you're not playing games. You're simply living your life without revolving around her. And that authenticity is what makes the shift real, because when you stop chasing, you're no longer giving away your emotional power, you're reclaiming it. And when that happens, the roles quietly reverse. She starts to feel what you once felt. And then comes the part most people think they want, but aren't actually prepared for. The moment she reaches out again, it might not happen the way you imagine. It's rarely dramatic. It could be something simple: a casual message, a reaction to your story, hey, that seems almost meaningless on the surface, but behind that small action is something much deeper. It's curiosity, it's emotion, it's the effect of everything that's been building during your absence. Because now you're no longer the same person she left. Your energy is different. Your mindset is stronger. You're not waiting for her message. You're busy living your life. And that's exactly why she feels the pull to reconnect. Not because you chased her back, but because you removed yourself and became someone she can no longer easily access. But here's where everything can either come together or fall apart. If you respond from the old version of yourself, the one who was chasing, overinvesting, and seeking validation, you instantly undo all the progress. You go right back to the same dynamic that pushed her away in the first place because nothing really changed except time passed. This is why most people lose their second chance. They think the goal was to get her back, but the real goal was to become someone who doesn't need her back to feel complete. And if that mindset isn't solid, the moment she reappears, old habits take over. You start replying too fast, you start overthinking your messages, you try to lock things down quickly. And without realizing it, you begin chasing again. But this time it's even more subtle. Real strength shows in how you handle this moment. You stay calm, you stay centered, you don't rush anything. You don't bring up the past or try to force deep conversations. You let her come to you at her pace while you continue focusing on your own life. You're open, but you're not attached. You're present, but you're not dependent. Because now you understand something you didn't before. Attention is earned, not given freely. If she wants to reconnect, she has to show consistency. She has to invest. She has to meet you at a level that matches your standards. And if she doesn't, you're willing to walk away again without hesitation. That's the difference. You're no longer afraid of losing her because you've already faced that loss and turned it into growth. You've already rebuilt yourself. You've already proven that your life continues without her, and that gives you something most people never develop: emotional freedom. So even if she comes back, the decision is no longer emotional, it's intentional. You choose what aligns with your standards, your peace, and your future, not your past. And that's when you realize something powerful. The goal was never to win her back, it was to become the man she has to earn.